In the meantime, kind of a chillier start to the week.
Yeah.
And not quite too far from April conditions, but you could feel it, Greg.
Yeah, it's kind of this typical April that we go back and forth a little bit with temperatures here. The good news is we go further in the month that going backwards on temperatures is not that bad. So, and doesn't last as long. But still, we have that cold air coming behind the system and that northwest flow. We get to kind of the showery weather that continues. We're going to have another round of that tonight. That could be rain or snow depending on location. Not expecting any accumulation, and it's going to wrap up before the morning commute. Tomorrow, less wind, still breezy, but not as breezy or windy as we had today. Still continue below average temperatures. Looks like we'll reach average or go a little bit above Wednesday with some sunshine Wednesday. That's probably going to be the best day of the week. We won't have to contend with any precipitation that day either. But overall for this evening, two areas, one south of I-90 and another area up to the north. That's kind of sinking south. This area is going to kind of push east. Both going to give a little bit of shower activity for some areas. Eau Claire will probably see that in maybe about another hour, hour and a half or so. It'll begin to sink south. We'll see more of that through I-94 through 10, 11 p.m. Just light precipitation, not expecting a lot, but you see there's a changeover as you go further north into Rusk County. Might actually see a little bit of light snow then after 10:30. That'll continue for maybe about an hour for Rusk County. They'll be done with it. Well, Eau Claire probably about 2 a.m.-ish, and then further south, probably by about 3 or 4, it'll start to push east. Now, if you're west of the river, you're likely not to see a lot of activity. East, probably more, but overall just light precipitation. But overall, it will wrap up before the morning commute. Tomorrow's winds more probably in that 15 to 20 instead of the 20 to 30 that we had today. Gusts more in the 30s, so breezy, but not quite as bad. But still, it won't make it feel that very comfortable out there with temperatures still in the mid 50s. That's about a couple degrees below average for this time of year. It does get better as we go on Wednesday. The winds turn around from the south-southeast. They're still fairly light. More sun in the morning. We'll have more clouds in the afternoon, but still, everyone should at least get close to 60 or above. It's a few degrees above average. Then Thursday gets a little more complicated because we'll have clouds, showers, and storms coming into focus probably later in the day. So some areas might get to 70. Depends on how cloud cover plays out. Other areas will be just in the 60s. It'll be the warmest day probably of the week. That shower chance comes in probably in the Thursday afternoon time frame, a little bit of activity here in the morning, but then you start to see development probably from Minnesota down to central Iowa as it begins to lift northeast. That thunderstorm activity will persist, but I think it'll turn more into general light rain as we go later in the evening. This will kind of push through, and then Friday, as this whole thing begins to sink south, we might see another development around it, so we might have more rain coming in Friday afternoon and Friday night. We'll see. There's kind of an interesting situation with this. It might actually sink further south and we won't see as much rain on Friday, but we'll still be under the impacts of that. Now for severe weather, most of that indication is further southwest right now. For Thursday, we'll keep an eye, but right now it looks to stay that way. Friday, when it sinks further south, it's more towards northern Illinois, towards Chicago. So don't think it will see it, but we'll keep an eye if things change. We will get another soaking, probably another quarter to a half inch. Maybe more if you get a thunderstorm that hits your area. Otherwise, dry conditions for the weekend, and then we're going to see the next chance of rain come Sunday night into Monday, which could be another good soaking rain too. So overall, it's what you would expect for the middle of April, kind of swinging back and forth a little bit with temperatures and some wind, but nothing too bad.
All right, I guess we'll be okay.
Yeah,
with
it's okay.
Not too bad.
It's still the middle of April. You know.
Thanks, Greg.